Revive Labs is a product accelerator. What is a product accelerator? Let's find out. Hi, I'm Junaid, neurocritical care stroke and epilepsy specialist, and one of the founding members of Revive Labs. The main aim of Revive Labs is to accelerate health technology, especially coming out of the emerging countries. The main idea is to incubate startup founders, so that not only they can disseminate, accelerate, make healthcare technology accessible within the emerging markets, but they are good enough. They are actually made in a way that is going to be exportable to developing countries, so they can reap the financial reward for the future. Now, one of the things that you have to understand the difference between accelerator, incubator, and product accelerator. A product accelerator is basically when you have a great idea and a limited proof of concept. Where we come in is basically understand that how you're going to be able to take that particular product and make it good enough for the developed market and make it fast enough and cheap enough for the emerging countries itself. The product itself in health tech is literally different as compared to fintech, edtech, etc. And one of the major issues is regulation, and we're going to come to that in a minute. When you come from a product accelerator, then we graduate you to an incubator. We personally don't do it. We have friends that they actually do the full-time incubation, in which you're going to learn sales, marketing, business plan formulations, getting financial help, getting all those requirements ready for making a whole business into a business, because the product is separate, then you have to turn it into a business, and finally you get into the accelerator stage, which of course we also have a lot of VC funds, including our own VC fund, that backs founders, basically making sure that they have the funds to make it to scale, make it to growth. Now, before I move into what my challenge is, we're going to talk about what really the whole challenge about health tech is in essence. We're going to see a brief clip from Vinod Khosla, who's interviewing the founders of Google, both Sergey Brin and Larry Page. Let's take a look.
Can you imagine, given your interest, you've had some interest in health, there's some radical stuff there. Android is a natural platform for health, mobile is, and health needs to be distributed in highly accessible broadly, not just at the hospital. Can you imagine Google becoming a health company, which may be a larger business than the search business or the media business?
I think it's for sure a larger business. And in fact, Google X, for example, we do have the glucose reading contact lenses. So we do.
Which are very cool.
Yeah, I don't wear them. Well, I don't wear contacts, and I don't know the need to measure my glucose, but they should be coming along pretty well. I'm very excited about that. Generally, health is just so heavily regulated. It's just a painful business to be in. It's just not necessarily how I want to spend my time. Even though we do have some health projects, and we'll be doing that to a certain extent. But I think the regulatory burden in the U.S. is so high that I think it would dissuade a lot of entrepreneurs.
I think this one clip sums it all. Number one, mobile is a natural extension to create accessibility to the healthcare. Number two, healthcare is probably a bigger business than both search and media combined. Number three, the biggest issue is not the moonshots, it's actually the regulation itself. The regulation is the Achilles heel why most entrepreneurs fail to understand the difficulty in health technology and also understanding how to scale it up into a market sense. One of the key things that I tell my founders all the time, it is not about intellectual property in health tech. It's all about FDA clearance. Because it doesn't matter how good your intellectual property is, if the patient cannot use it, it does not matter. And therefore, where I come in terms of this particular Revive Labs, is the Chief Compliance Officer. My job here is to help your product to be compliant in both ways. It is one of the compliances, basically the biomedical engineering compliance. If it's a software as a medical device, then you need to understand the cybersecurity requirements. However, it is just one part of it. Then there is the clinical requirements. The validation and verification of software has to be on both sides in terms of electrical, biomedical, software level, and of course at the level of clinical, including clinical trials, etc., etc. Now, what qualifies me? And that's a very good question, and it is important to always ask because you have to choose your mentors very carefully. So number one is that I founded two companies. One of them is Neurocare.ai, in which we had developed a care management software. One of the key issues that I faced during that particular development was integration and interoperability. If my software is going to be ever useful to anyone, it has to integrate between different electronic medical record systems, basically solving the data health exchange problem. As long as your software device is interoperable, then it can only be successful. And therefore, that is one of the key issues that is important in terms of compliance, in terms of regulation, in terms of usability. That's one part of it that I help you, that is basically integration, interoperable. The second part, which is basically my second company, which is HealthSolutions.ai, in which we basically are working on getting the FDA clearance, which is a Class 2 device for software as medical device. Now, within that, you have to understand all the regulations, risk management, quality management system, how they interplay each other, how do you report to the cybersecurity framework as well, including HITRUST, which is the now considered the standard framework for cybersecurity for many industries, but mainly for healthcare itself. So all in all, that is where basically I come in to help your product succeed, because unless and until it follows these guidelines, it will not be market ready. That's a very important term, market ready. And that's one of the things that I always stress on. The key issue of success is product market fit. And therefore, you really need to understand the market and how do you design the product that it fits into the market as well. So the minute that happens, that beautiful fit happens between the product and the market, then and then only it can be a successful product. So the challenge that I have is basically, I was looking at the market itself. And that is where I always look for what I can do better, faster, and cheaper. Those are the three things: better, faster, and cheaper. And most importantly is to understand that how, when I do all these three things, when I can decrease the cost by 10 times, when I can make the production and movement of the data and product itself 10 times faster, I have a winning product. So let's look at this important chart. This is extremely important to understand where our dollars are going to be in the future. By 2040, it is estimated that approximately 2/3 of our dollars are going to go into well-being. That does not mean sick care. Look, you have to understand, people have this commotion that at the end of the day, we're going to be spending all of our dollars into hospitals and clinics. That's not going to be true. The whole idea towards digitalization of healthcare is moving towards what? Taking care of yourself better, that is well-being, and early detection of disease, which is going to save dollars, that's going to create value. And that is where I want to be, because what is the market of the future? And therefore, I want to work on the product of the future. So what I'm looking for is basically an activity monitor. An activity monitor is mainly designed for step count, sleep, etc., all of them. And we already have a lot of devices like Apple Watch, Fitbit, etc. The niche market that we can go into is basically neurology and psychiatry. Everyone wants heart rate for atrial fibrillation detection, for increased heart rate. But we want to target basically panic disorders in terms of heart rate detection. We want to basically see if agoraphobia can be detected faster and people can get help on that. And we want to make sure that neurological patients basically fall where? Backwards. For example, Parkinson's disease, which is much more problematic than just relative fall detection. And therefore, their needs to get help is also very different. So we want to design an activity monitor that is truly for neurology and psychiatry patients, and therefore clinically validate that as well. So clearly that is the future, and we're going to talk more and more about it. What is the addressable market, etc. But I hope that you are going to be able to join our team and have your product accelerated. Thank you so much.